Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. It's a pleasure to present you Alejandra Florian. Hi, Alejandra. How are you?
Mhm.
Alejandra and I have been working now for more than 5 years. She's a senior consultant with us when it comes to SAP licensing. And today we are talking about optimizing the SAP STAR analysis with samQ, with our software. So, what is the SAP STAR analysis? S/4HANA Trusted Authorization Review. This is what we will be talking about. Some of you may have heard about it already. So the S/4HANA Trusted Authorization Review is all about measuring or estimating how many user licenses and which of them you will be needing in the future on S/4HANA and RISE with SAP. In the case of RISE with SAP, it translates into full user equivalence. So this is an offering by SAP. They have two things. First of all, they brought out an SAP Note that helps you analyzing the user setup. And then they offer this also as an assessment service where they can come to your company, run the analysis, and then discuss the results with you, eventually tweak them a bit, etc. So, is it a good thing? Is it not a good thing? Well, as everything, it has upsides and downsides. So, caution, the writer said here, the analysis is based on an outdated authorization concept and does not identify any potential for optimization. Is that correct? Well, what do you think, Alejandra? What are you finding with your clients?
Well, basically, it is correct, but but if the customers have their authorizations and roles up to date, so if they have some issues or with authorizations, the analysis will be
All
outdated.
right.
Correct.
Yeah, that's right. And so I don't quite like the sentence based on an outdated authorization concept. Yeah, not necessarily, but mostly yes. What happens is let's roll back in history onto what happened. Well, around, I think it was 6 years ago, USMMLS law was all about measuring the license codes that were assigned to every user. Then, together with a German company, SAP set up a new version of S-Law based on authorizations. And then they started measuring the authorizations that every user had, and based on that, running the audit process. Now, this company that built this together with SAP eventually said, well, that doesn't really fit our reality because we haven't fixed our authorizations, and the system is showing that we need many, many more upper license types, such as the professional user. So they went away from that. But the system is now there, and the SAP use rights, especially on S/4HANA and RISE, are based on what a user is authorized to do and not what he's actually doing. Meaning, if you want to align your license setup to what users actually do, you need to consider this when reviewing and setting up your roles and authorizations. Now, there are no tools in market to do that from SAP at least. We have some tools in samQ, especially in the new version. Let's now move on to the next slide and let's look into that. So, what is good and what is bad about that? Um, we have tools that help you doing that. We'll look into the details later on. But when we do projects with clients, well, I mean, you must look into the fact that some ECC contracts, they are already 20 years old. And what do you find? You find, of course, the standard license types, SAP professional user, sometimes the limited professional user. Sometimes you also find special user types of a client, such as, I don't know, the plant management. There is a shop floor user, of course, but sometimes they define, well, people who work on my plants, they have a special user, or people who work on my point of sale in the shops. they have a special user types that I agreed with SAP about. Then you have technical users, you have the engine users in new times, and there is a lot of complexity. Now, in the past, SAP said in the audit manual, well, classify your users according to our use rights, and then we'll measure them during the audit process with USMM and SLOs. So it was on the client to do that, right? And then we have a tool that helps the client doing so. samQ, we've been doing this for more than 10 years now, where we analyze the activity of a user. We compare this to SAP's use rights, and based on that, we do an automated classification of user licenses, and we can customize that, etc. Fine. But now we are not looking into activity anymore. We are looking into authorizations. Now, when people look into authorizations, what happened was mostly you saw what do they need actually, and let's give them this and that authorizations. In former times, very often it was like we have a standard user type and we assign this standard role to all 200 people here, and this other role where we added two more authorizations to these 300 other people, etc. So there was no fine tuning, and especially there was no comparison into if I have these authorizations, how does this impact on my costs? So on the user types that I need. So do you know this diagram that we put together, Alejandro? I think, in fact, we did this together a couple of years ago by analyzing who was right on the SAP user licenses, right? This diagram shows the analysis of, I don't know, it was around 100 projects that we were looking into that we've done in the past. And mostly we found out that 60% of the customers we were talking with, we were analyzing with samQ were over licensed, and 30% of them were exposed to an audit risk, so under licensed. And only 10% of our clients where we came in the first time with a quick license assessment had it more or less set up properly. Now, this was based on usage, but today we are talking about authorizations. As you can imagine, you've been managing your authorizations with the purpose of, well, guaranteeing segregation of duties and giving people as little authorizations as possible. But you've never been considering, because you don't have the tools to do so, how far giving people authorizations also increases their license need and their license demand to a higher license type. We've partnered a couple of years ago with a company in Germany who has an authorization systems that we are promoting as SAPQ. And there we built exactly this functionality where when you were looking into upgrading the license, sorry, the authorizations of someone, you then got a warning like, look, changing these authorizations will increase or require a higher license type. It's a complex process, and I haven't seen it yet in other tools. It may be there. I'm not an expert on roles and authorizations tools, nevertheless. But so what does that mean? It means even on S/4HANA, even on RISE with SAP, looking at the license setup will be very important in the future. Maybe not as important as it was in the past, because mostly we only have the developer, the professional license type, and now the productivity and functionality license type. Called difference on RISE with SAP. Do you remember the names? I always forget them on RISE with
Yeah,
SAP,
it's
Alejandra.
the advanced, the core, and the employee. Well, it's the ESS.
Oh, yeah, yeah, the ESS user, correct. So mostly they have the same rights as on S/4HANA, but then you translate them into full user equivalents with a factor 1 to 1, 1 to 5, 1 to 30. Now, of course, it is not the same paying amount X for a license as paying 30 times as much for it. And this is what you need to bear in mind. On top of that, SAP has provided the lower license types on RISE with SAP, so the ESS and the core license type with many, many more authorizations as they had before. So now the core user is able to do sales processes and logistics processes and material management processes. And even the ESS is able to approve, same as the core user, approve invoices, so get into approval processes, etc. So there is much more to it. So you're coming from a license setup on ECC where you eventually had a lot of professional users because the ESS and the employee user, they didn't have so many rights. Now you're coming into a new environment on S/4HANA and RISE with SAP, where those new user types, functional, productivity, core, ESS, they have a lot more of use rights and you can do much more with them. So you need to make a projection on what you need there. And therefore, SAP comes and runs the S/4HANA Trusted Authorization Review and tells you what you apparently would need. Now, yes, but it is based on what you allowed people to do sometime in the past. It is not based on what people are actually doing. So what is the issue here? Is the STAR authorization, is the STAR assessment wrong? No. Mostly your roles and authorization setup is wrong when you use it to assign user licenses. You would need to correct your roles and authorizations to do that. As I said, you were left out of tools to do so. SAP is not providing anything there, but thanks to God, you have samQ here. And in the new version of samQ, we have included a couple of functions that are able to run the STAR authorization review or import the results of it as you prefer. And then it compares this result to the usage-based analysis. So we compare usage-based with authorization-based. And not only do we show you the differences in how many users is the STAR assessment telling that you need a higher license type, but we also show you which roles and authorizations and transactions lead to the higher license requirement on SAP. And this is a marvelous functionality because it is not just someone telling you this is what you got. This is now you have the explanation on why people are being assigned eventually a higher license type than that what they would actually need based on their um, current activity in the system. So, and another report that we built like 3 years ago was this one. This one is telling you which people have which licenses and how many of the people have been assigned here under corrected Zuordnung means how many people have been assigned the correct license type, how many people have a too high license type, and how many people have a too low license type. And this is another perspective on what we are doing here. And then we optimize the configuration, of course, with samQ, showing you how do you need to set up your system. You can even set samQ up to correct this environment.
And
Now,
also,
Alejandra, I'm just thinking, go on,
yeah, and
please
also that
interrupt.
we can identify the users without activity, and that those ones are candidates of the activation. So this is something that SAMQ
Oh, yeah,
can.
yeah, yeah. That's super important. Some companies do have an automated process to decommission or expire users when they leave the company, change the department, etc. But many of them don't. And samQ also is able to first show you which people haven't been doing having any activity in the system over the last 6, 9, 12 months. And if you wanted to, it can also even deactivate those users. So What more? It is important not only to find the issues, but to correct them automatically. And this is what samQ is doing basically. When you set our batches up to do the automated user data collection, activity data collection, and then the write back in the system to correct those things. You can see in the new VOQUZ samQ tool that we have the star collector and the star reporting functions there under add-ons. And these are the new reports that show you, well, what is MQ telling you? Which license would you need based on your activity? But it also shows you how far is Star telling you that those users need a different license type. And you can filter them out, see the differences, and focus the activity of your corrections in your roles and authorizations. So what do you want to do? Plan the future based on real activity or plan it based on the wrongly set up authorizations? Bear this in mind. This is the most important message here. If you want to do a projection on how many user and which users you need in the future, do it based on reality. And then, of course, correct your roles and authorizations to match this reality. So, well, the world is changing, and SAP has changed their use rights, and this is something that we need to accept and we need to work with. So, in the transition from activity-based to authorizations-based, we want to support you too. And this is why we are building the functionality in samQ to be able to do both. So you can assign your licenses based on roles and authorizations or on activity. And this will allow you in the future to do that. Now, I'm thinking of the last project we did in Spain, Alejandra. I don't know if you remember this one, where we found um, two anomalies in the contract. Number one, this contract had an overall discount of, let's say, 40%. But then the professional users, which were a lot, it was like 80% of the users were professional users, had a discount level of 5%. Now, the most expensive product with the lowest discount level, and then the rest of the contract had a high discount level. What happens, of course, if we now do a projection towards the future, is um, a lot of those professional users, they, why don't you tell us, Alejandra, what happened there?
When we made the star analysis, we found more professionals, but when we did the analysis, we reviewed that the authorizations, that there are small things that in the authorizations that this made that the users or that the star analysis says that they need the professional license. But when what I mean, this is something that, in this case, that the customer needs to, with or also with our help, they they need to update the roles with the real authorization that they will really need. So no,
Correct.
if we can just decide if the transactions are just for create or display or if they only can have all the authorizations like delete or do a reverse, something like that. So this is something that we can now uh, monitor with
Now,
samQ.
with this particular client, we ran into a totally different problem, of course. So both the star analysis as the SAMQ analysis showed us that this client had a lot of candidates who had on ECC professional license, and they were candidates to use the core or the ESS user on Rise with SAP and say the functional and productivity user on S4HANA. Now, with so many users with a very expensive product now going into a lower license type, and then the discounts in the contract being balanced out, the consequence of this was basically S/4HANA being less costly than ECC, which is of course something that SAP is unlikely to accept, losing maintenance. But this was the situation. At least we showed it. We showed the client the issues, and we showed him a way out of this, well, shelfware situation by doing the comparison between the STAR assessment and the usage-based assessment. And we showed him the issues that he had in his contract, and we showed him a way out on how to correct this in the future. No secrets here, of course. It is, has very much to do with the swapping of shelfware for licenses that you actually need and provide value to the company, which is fine. We are correcting something that happened years and years ago. Um, so what are we saying here? When you look into the STAR assessment, run it. It's a fine assessment. It will tell you what your roles and authorizations say about the users. Is it actually what you need in the future? Likely not. You need to correct roles and authorizations for them to reflect what users are actually doing in the system. How can you do that? We provide the tool. The new samQ version compares the STAR assessment or the S/4HANA Trusted Authorization Review with a usage-based analysis that shows what people are actually doing, what they need based on their activity, and the system allows you also to understand the difference and correct them in the future. We'll be going on with Jürgen's team, our manager of samQ development, and he's already considering next functions based on authorizations that will help you correct this in the future. So I'm looking very much forward to it. But don't forget about it. So it's all about understanding the difference, usage-based analysis, authorizations-based analysis. Run both, compare them, and understand the differences. Thank you very much for listening to us today. Thank you very much for your support, Alejandra. And now we turn to the Q&A session.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Tony. I think you're still on mute. Let me just see whether we can unmute you there. There you go. Welcome to the session. Welcome,
everyone.
Tony, joining us as VP of APAC and the Middle East region. We have 3 sessions today, so thanks for joining us for the one in the morning, Tony. Before we hit it off, please bear with me. We have a bit of a new setup here. I'd like to go through a short little survey with you guys just to see where we all stand on the topic. And let me try and start that for you. It consists of 4 questions, yes or no questions, anonymous, so not a problem for you to answer, no compliance issues there. Let me just try and throw the first one onto the screen, and let's see whether this works. So you should be seeing it. Is your C-level aware of the impact of an optimized SAP licensing landscape on your migration to S/4HANA? So do they connect this to your next steps? I'm going to leave this open for another 5 seconds, and then I'm curious to hear what you say about the outcome, Tony. So this is still moving. Another 3 seconds till I close it. Okay, it's going up and down. Closing now and sharing the results. Is this visible for everyone? Tony, can you see this?
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah,
In fact,
surprising for you, 63%?
Not really. We're always going to have this. Those who know, those who don't. I mean, it's quite a low number of people who voted. So realistically, 50-50 would be around what I expect. Does a C-level really care, in inverted commas, about an optimized SAP licensing landscape? or do they care about the ability of their business to run appropriately at the best possible price? So it's a strange question to a certain extent, but it's an expected result. Yes, some C-levels will, particularly in the smaller companies. Obviously, in the larger companies, I'm not expecting, you know, Coca-Cola's C-level to really understand SAP licensing, to be perfectly honest with you.
I can imagine. It probably aims also to what's the, you know, how to promote this, how to promote actually checking your SAP licensing landscape. What's the elevator pitch to the C-level to say, yeah, please do invest in this because it's important. You have any experience on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the elevator pitch is that it makes a massive difference to not only your current usage and your current costs, but to your future licensing and your future costs. So anything that you do now is not an overnight spend and you forget about it. Anything you do now is going to impact the next 10 years of your relationship with SAP. So get it right now or have it wrong for a decade. That would be my elevator pitch.
Let's go to the second one before we go over to the questions. Let me just try and launch that again. So, do you consider using SAP STAR analysis to prepare your S/4HANA migration at all? Have you considered that? Is that on your plan? Is it a priority? Do you use different tools or none at all? So in this case, have you considered STAR as your major tool to help you prepare for your S/4HANA migration? Going to leave this open for another 5 seconds from now, and then let's have a look at what it says. Closing in 3 seconds from now and sharing the results. Also, an open question: what other possibilities are there? Tony, what do you think? 86% say, yeah, definitely, I'm going to use this to see where I stand before I at least have partial information on where I stand before we move.
Yeah, 86% say they'll consider it, not definitely use it.
Mm.
I think SAP are doing a relatively good job at promoting the STAR tool nowadays. People are aware that it exists, and they are aware that it does give a different perspective on their license requirements. But I think Francisco and Alejandra in the webinar did a good job of explaining that it has to be taken with a pinch of salt. That you need to understand what it's doing, and you need to understand where the results are coming from, so that you can fully understand the implications of running STAR, particularly if you show the results to SAP. So I'm not surprised that people are considering using it. With the massive caveat, understand what you're doing and understand the rationale behind it and what the results actually mean.
Thanks for that. Going over to the third one. And it says, do you feel confident and informed about the changes in licensing between the classic ECC and the S/4HANA in context to STAR, of course, in context to authorization and licensing in general? Leaving this open for another 5 seconds from now, because I know you're going to point out the difference on this one, what's important about this one, Tony. Leaving this open for another 4 seconds from now. Closing and sharing the results. $40 to $60. Okay, so there is quite a bit of potential to gain more information, what it can do and what it actually tells us about it. What's your take? What do you think is the most gain?
This is fairly typical nowadays. We do have a lot of knowledge in the SAP landscape, in the SAP world, but we also still have a lot of people who aren't familiar, particularly if they're on the technical side. So if you're from a technical background, or if you're not on the contract side in your negotiations, then really, why would you understand what the different licensing models are, and why would you understand the cost implications? As I think Francisco said in the webinar, the old ECC named users, you know, we had a list this long of different user types that you had to wade your way through to make sure that you met the right one for each of your individuals. In both S/4HANA and in the FUE equivalent, we're narrowing it down to only 3 operational user types now, more or less, with a lot of different functionality associated with the lower levels. And when you're talking about a 30-to-1 ratio between self-service and advanced, even 5-to-1 between core and advanced, you can see that you could easily massively overspend. You only need to be, I don't know, 100 advanced users out of sync, and suddenly you're paying what's 100 times 30, 3,000 times more cost. So it's an interesting dynamic in that SAP has given you more flexibility, but it also is an interesting dynamic that if you get it wrong, the cost implications are huge. So it's, again, something to think about.
Thanks. Launching the 4th one out of the 4, last question. It's exactly about the value of the information combined with our product samQ. So were you aware that SAP STAR is now integrated into the samQ license optimizer for SAP software? And Tony will tell us in a minute why that might be important to know, and how that might help you to still check with STAR, but not only. Leaving this open for another 5 seconds from now. And I'll be closing and sharing the results. And here we go. Well, okay, there is a bit of awareness. That's good for us. Obviously, there's a bit of implementation. Why is that important, actually, to combine those two from your point of view, Tony?
Well, we just told everyone, so I was hoping that everyone would say yes.
It's a little test.
But this is important for us, though, and I think it's important for customers as well. In the past, you had to use SAP's own tooling, and a lot of customers would have been under the misapprehension that this information had to be shared with SAP. That isn't the case. You don't have to share it with SAP, but that would certainly be most customers' thought process. Now that we have this functionality within samQ, you don't have to involve SAP at all. You can just run samQ. You can see the usage-based analysis. You can see the authorization-based analysis. You can see the differences it makes. You can see, to a large extent, what's causing those differences. So it's a very different dynamic. And of course, when we're dealing with SAP, sometimes it's difficult to get the correct licensing information out of them. I'm not saying they do it deliberately, but sometimes it's difficult to really build your BOM around what you need rather than what SAP tells you need. So this is a very good way of doing it proactively and independently, even before you engage SAP. So I think it's an important step.
Thanks for that. Thanks to all of you for participating. And let's go over to the questions that we have on this. I'm going to read out the first one. There's a colleague asking, what can clients do if they have already implemented RISE and they have a SAP audit which shows that they have FUE overuse? What are their options?
We're already seeing this on quite a number of occasions. So a lot of customers move to RISE and do a lift and shift of their current environment into an SAP managed environment. With their old authorization concepts and all their old roles just moved across, and suddenly SAP has visibility to this, and yeah, we're seeing it in quite a number of our customers. The good news is that with a number of our customers, we're already helping them fight back. We're already helping them demonstrate the actual needs of their users, and at least at this stage, SAP, at least with the customers we're working with, is being relatively open to customers making adjustments and getting it correct. So of course, SAP's first approach is you owe us, $200 billion squillion. But if a customer really looks into it, gets an independent third party involved like us, gets the right information, we are seeing SAP being flexible and at least giving customers the opportunity to make it right. I'm not saying that's going to happen in all markets, but certainly in our experience so far, we are getting good results.
A detailed one on the communication between STAR and SAP. Basically, and the question goes: does STAR report back to SAP straight away, or does it show the results to me only, at least at first?
Yeah. So it's a good question. It comes back to what I said before. People are under the misapprehension that you have to send it back to SAP, but there is functionality within STAR so that you can keep it to yourself. You just need to know how to do it. But obviously, when we work with customers, or when we used to work with customers, we don't need STAR anymore. But when we used to work with customers, we always told them to keep it to themselves to start off with, and then we can do our remediation and mitigation work. And then if we want to, we share it with SAP.
So use it as an internal alert tool rather than a straightforward communication tool. Get it? Well,
Exactly.
Mhm.
But now if you have samQ, you don't even have to bother with it. It does it. It does it for you. samQ does it for you.
That actually fits the last questions I have on the screen here, and it says, do I need to run STAR separately to samQ as it is those two independents? Can we compare them one to each other, the results, or to what extent?
That's what we've been doing in the past. So if you have samQ already and you haven't upgraded to our latest version, then that's what we have been doing. We've been running STAR, and then we've been uploading the data into samQ and doing the comparison like that. Nowadays, we've built the functionality within samQ, so you don't have to run them both separately. You just run samQ, and samQ does them both for you.
Okay, I think that was it with the questions. If you have any more, and if you feel that
I
there
think
is
I
not,
can. I think I can see one. I think I can see one
yeah.
more. How effective is samQ tool? How
Oh, okay.
quickly can it run? And what is it? I can't see the last word. It's in the questions.
Not sure where you see that. Let me just see that. Oh, yeah, you're right. I oversaw
Oh,
that. How
right,
effective
okay.
is the samQ tool? Thanks for your help there. How effective is the samQ tool, and how quickly can it be run? And what is it? What is its implementation process?
Oh, okay. So samQ is an SAP add-on. It's very quickly to install. It takes about 2 hours to get it installed, and then maybe another 4 to 6 hours to get it customized to a customer's specific environment and to their contract. But even once it's installed, it runs immediately, and you get data immediately. And then obviously once you've done that customization, you get, in inverted commas, better, more customized results for your particular organization. So very quick.
And now, really, that was it. Let me just check this. Thanks for helping out here, Tone. Oh, no, there is another one coming in. Hang on a second. And it says, did you already mention whether the STAR SAP node has to be implemented before STAR works in samQ?
No,
Let me
no.
check about this one. No, okay.
STAR, yeah, the STAR functionality works independently of the SAP node. So we've built that functionality within samQ. So previously it was outside, and we combined it. Now we have it within samQ.
Okay, another check also on the other channel on the email. Yeah, as I started saying before, the last questions came in. If you have something where you feel it's a bit too complicated, or that this is not the time and place to ask, please reach out to us either via the email address labs@voquuzlabs.com. We read to our experts, no problem with that. Tony is also pretty active on LinkedIn if you want to connect in that way. And also, if you feel there is something missing in our webinar portfolio, where you say, well, yeah, we've talked about the S/4HANA migration in general quite a lot, but I have, I don't know, a detailed question about the specific aspect, let us know, and we might actually try to make it happen in one of the next webinars. Okay,
No,
here we go.
There's plenty of things happening in the SAP world. We'd love to talk about them, definitely. That's all we talk about ever, is just SAP.
Exactly. Exactly. So let me just check whether something else came in, something popped in. Here we go. This is basically a statement, the word, as far as I can see it. The outcome of samQ is the equivalent to the STAR result, and it can be used as the STAR result to SAP. I understand this question. Is it representative? Sort of when I when I go back to the results to the SAP team. That's how I understand it.
We use exactly the same logic. Remember that samQ also does samQ's core functionality has always been analysis based on usage. So now that we've brought the star function in, we're now doing it based on authorization as well. So you can see both. But yes, obviously our intention is that samQ gives you exactly the same results on the authorization side as you would if you'd use star itself. So the answer is yes.
The colleague who asked just confirmed that I understood it right. So thanks for answering that, Tony. The thing is, can we like to say it bluntly, can we walk around with the samQ results and talk to the SAP and say, this is what it says, this is actually a legitimate test, or is there something that you need to argue about then?
There should be no reason why you shouldn't be able to use it with SAP. It is using SAP's own logic. I still suggest that possibly SAP would want to see results coming out of the SAP system.
Their own,
but that's just the way SAP has always been. That's not a criticism of our tooling, of any other's tooling. That's just the way SAP's mentality runs. So you might need to run the star note as well. But the whole point of this, though, is that you don't have to run the star note. You don't have to run the star to be pre-armed and pre-warned about what the implications are going to be. You can do all of that up front without involving SAP in any way, shape, or form.
So, but I remember you saying in other webinars when we're talking about audits and checking proposals and stuff that there is no reason to not sort of back up your questions and your interest as a company and confront SAP with it, rather than just taking over what they say or what a salesperson suggests. And
you have to. If you don't confront SAP, then you're inevitably going to be pushed down a path that the SAP wants you to go down, whether that's the optimal path for you or not. Proactivity is key. And believe it or not, in a live webinar, I'm going to be chucked out of my meeting room again. So I do have to leave. 1 minute.
Okay, not a problem at all. We are through with the questions. Yeah, sorry about that. Thanks for being with us, Tony. If you want, you can hop off straight away, and I'm going to say bye to the viewers and give them a mind
before this person starts shouting at me. So thanks, everybody. I'll speak to you later. Bye-bye.
See you next time. Thanks, Tony. Cheers. Okay. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for taking part in the little survey. As I said, labs@voquuzlabs.com. If you have any other questions, reach out to us. It's pretty much it's pretty transparent what we do. We've been there on the market for quite a while now, and I'm not afraid of any type of problem or question you might occur. Confidential and taking care of your compliance, of course. Other than that, thanks for joining us, and hopefully see you next time. Thank you very much.